Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Such a beautiful crowd we have today. Y'all look good out there. I would like to welcome you all to this very important meeting today, Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016, the City of Portsmouth City Council Chambers. I would like to ask Commissioner G to please give invocations and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner G.
If we could please stand. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here today to do the work of our city. You know, sometimes it may seem like things are going bad in our country, in our city, in our world, but we know that inside of each of us is the ability to make things right. We thank you for that ability. We thank you for making each day different from the ones that have come before, and each day to come even better. For this and all things we say in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will now have roll call. Please indicate your presence electronically. 7 members of the Planning Commission are present.
Commissioners, before you have the minutes of July 5th, 2016 public hearing. If there aren't any changes, we're in need of a motion. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written from the July 5th meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Chair has received the motion and in need of a second. Commissioner G?
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. The minutes are approved, 6 and 1 abstention. Announcements of future meetings and conferences. Please note that our next work session is Tuesday, September the 6th, 2016 at 12:30 p.m., 6th floor conference room, followed by public hearing at 1:30 p.m., City Council Chamber. Items reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their September the 13th, 2016 or September the 27th, 2016 public hearing or as otherwise noted. Planning Commission rules limit a speaker up to 5 minutes to speak. We also ask that everyone please silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. Thank you. Our first item, UP-16-08 Cavalier Manor. Ashley Scott, representing Herman and Kittle Properties, Inc., is requesting a use permit to construct 280 multifamily apartment units in 22 buildings on approximately 13.8 acres located at 4358 Greenwood Drive. The property is zoned urban residential high UR-H, and the density of the development proposed would be 20.3 dwelling units to the acre. The property is owned by C.B. Richard Ellis of Virginia, Inc., and designated on the city's comprehensive plan future land use map for multifamily residential uses. The property is also referenced as Tax Map 145, parcel 0559-0010. Our staff coordinator, John Hartley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hartley.
Looks like we might get a good downpour here before we finish today.
Yes, sir.
The proposal before you today is a request for a use permit to construct up to 280 apartment units at the intersection of Greenwood and Tazewell Street. This is the property that at one time was called Bonnevilla. It contained a number of buildings with a little over 100 units on it. What is proposed now is a total of 280 units. On the right on the screen is the existing zoning map, which designates the zoning as urban residential high, or URH. And I should add that the comprehensive plan, also in keeping with the historical use of the property, is designated for multifamily development. So that is the foundation upon which we're working on in terms of the use permit. The graphic on the left is just one of the entrances into the two-story apartment buildings that are proposed. This is an aerial photo of the property. The property's outlined in yellow, and Greenwood and Tazewell are marked on this map, as well as Interstate 264. It's a little over 13-acre parcel. And what exists today on the parcel are the slabs that from the old buildings of Bonnevilla that are still in place, as well as a number of fairly mature trees on the site. This is a ground photo looking across Greenwood Drive. You can see the orange sign that announces today's public hearing. The church is just beyond the property in the background on the picture. If you go to the north end of the property, there are three, four single-family detached residences, all one story. To the south is the small shopping center that contains a Family Dollar and a barber shop and a tax office and a number of other small businesses. The photograph on the lower right are the residences across Greenwood. You then have the church on the corner of Greenwood and Tazewell, and then single-family residences around the perimeter on the east of the property along Tazewell Street. And the photos on the right and the bottom are of those homes. To the west is Charlestown Townhouses. Two pictures of those. The lower picture is the area immediately adjacent to the property that's the subject of the use permit today, and then one of the entrances into the townhouses, the upper left. This is a conceptual plan of the overall development. It contains 22 structures. All of those structures, the perimeter structures are all facing outward. The original proposal that we received had all of the entrances on the interior of the site, and one of the requirements in our multifamily standards is that those buildings be turned to face outward so that they're part of the community. They're accessible from pedestrian ways, as opposed to being more like a gated, independent, separate entity from the rest of the community. There are, and let me actually go back. There are a series of standards in the zoning ordinance that regulate multifamily development, and those standards address the street network, access, circulation, the design of the parking areas and garages, as well as where service areas are, the building design, including its orientation and entryways, maximum height, the facade articulation, windows, doors, and generally those kinds of things, and roof forms, and then accessory structures. Another section of the ordinance that applies to this property is what's called the transitional standards. These were standards that were adopted in 2010 that were intended to protect single-family residences either immediately adjacent to a property or across a two-lane road from a property. And those standards limit the heights of the buildings that can be across the street or adjacent, as well as the roof forms, and again, the service and loading areas, parking and driveways, and any outdoor activity areas, as well as the intensities of uses. In a nutshell, if you had to summarize the transitional standards, the idea is to have reasonably compatible uses and facilities that are adjacent to single-family residences, and more intensive activities to the interior of the property or away from those single-family residences. This particular map shows in the yellow lines, yellow-orange lines, what properties are currently single-family residential and where those transitional standards would apply. Also on this map are the number of stories of each of the buildings, and you'll note that in addition to facing the public streets, all of the perimeter buildings are actually limited to 2 stories, and anything over 2 stories is interior to the property. There are 2 3-story buildings that are proposed towards the front of the property, closest to Greenwood, again in the center core area. Can't really see this highlighter, but and then 2 buildings that are a combination of 2-story on each end and 3-story in the center. The total makeup of the units is there are proposed to be 52 1-bedroom units, 172 2-bedroom units, and 56 3-bedroom units. Currently, there are no proposed 4 or 5 or more bedroom units. There is also a clubhouse, which is in the center of the property, and a swimming pool. There are 406 parking spaces, as well as 32 garage spaces. At this point, the staff has looked at this development against the current standards, and based on the conceptual plans that we have, it appears to comply with all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. One area that, well, there are a couple of areas where there'll need to be some additional detail provided, and we'll review all of that during the site plan process, which would follow the use permit should it be approved. One is a playground area, is a requirement of the ordinance. There are open space requirements. They do meet the open space. What is lacking is a active recreation area. One of the conditions staff has recommended is that a active recreational area be provided. Essentially, what we're trying to get at is a playground that's age appropriate, and we've recommended that be reviewed and approved by the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services in terms of its size and configuration and the components for that. Our understanding is also that the developer met with the community, and one of the things that the developer was asked to do and has offered to do, and we've included it as a requirement, is that wherever there's fencing, it either be a wrought iron or metal fencing, as opposed to either wood or vinyl or something different than that. This is just one of the elevations of the building, in particular the 2-story building. It shows you the front elevation, which for those buildings along Tazewell and Greenwood would face the street, is on the bottom. The rear elevation is in the center, and then the end elevations are at the top. With that, you have the staff report in front of you. I will try to answer any questions. Again, we've recommended 4 conditions, actually 5 conditions. One is that, should it be approved, the development would be in substantial conformity with the concept site plan that you have in front of you and in your packet. That it be in substantial conformity with the elevations and the renderings, which are this last photo, in terms of materials, which are composed of brick and hardy plank siding as the dominant materials. And then the fencing requirement, that they be all metal, and the open space, and then there's a general, all taxes and fees will be paid and kept current by the property owner. With that, I'll conclude my comments and try to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Hartley, we approved something like this back in 2009 for this property, right? Multifamily?
Correct. There was a project for, I believe it was 242 units.
Okay.
That was approved in 2008, 2009 timeframe. It was approved as a use permit, which was required back then, and they did submit site plans, but those approvals have now expired.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they're no longer valid.
All right. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Williams?
Mr. Hartley, you talk about the recreation area, but looking at that site plan, would that have to be redone? Because I don't see any area for a recreation area.
If it has to be redone, then it would have to be redone. The developers indicated there may be some area in the vicinity of the clubhouse and pool. When we write the conditions, we write them in such a way that it requires substantial conformity subject to any modifications during the site plan process, which gives us the ability to move things around a little bit, but not change major components of the plan, such as access points and the orientations of the buildings and those kinds of things. So when it comes to something like the playground, in theory, you could put it up in that top corner, but that's something that we'd have to work out with the developer during the site plan process. So the requirement is that they provide that facility on site. They have not designed to that at this point and would have to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Thompson?
John, what is the yellow band going on around part of the property?
The yellow band is just to indicate essentially single-family residences around the property and where those transitional standards that I mentioned earlier would apply.
Okay, so
Excuse me.
the ones on the top of the plan have the backs facing the other properties, so that conflicts with the transitional standard.
The buildings the buildings are required to front on any public street, okay? It's not a requirement that they face the backs of residential properties, okay? Really, the transitional requirements for those buildings along the rear where there's no street are certain setbacks and height limitations. And those height limitations are really to prevent three-story buildings from being built right next to a single-family residence.
So does that in any way correspond with where the fencing, the proposed proffered fencing would go?
The fencing would be, the fencing and landscaping would be located along that yellow line. There are landscaping requirements as well adjacent to single-family residences.
Okay, so the yellow line on the bottom of the plan is actually, it looks like it's across Tazewell.
Correct. Let me step back to the transitional standards. The transitional standards were essentially crafted to prevent, and I'll just use the example of a three-story building being next to a one-story residence. So it's an attempt to create either space or design transitions from the single-family residential use to any other use, whether it's multifamily or commercial or even an institutional use. The yellow areas outlined are where all the single-family residential properties adjoin the subject property, the property requesting the use permit. And that's why that's why they're highlighted on the map, to show where those single-family residential properties are. The transition standards apply to any property that adjoins the property and any property that is across a two-lane road. Okay, so that's why the houses in this case the bottom of the map is also outlined, because those are all single-family detached residences from the church on back up to the north end of the property. There are also single-family detached residences along Greenwood. That area is not subject to the transition standards because Greenwood is a 4-lane highway, so that's why you get that difference. And with this map, I was just trying to emphasize where do those standards apply, and this is a map that tells you that. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, Mr. Hartley. Just so I'm clear, this property will always have to be apartments or townhomes under the current zoning, which is in line with what you said was the comprehensive plan. So until the zoning is changed to, I guess, maybe urban residential, single-family homes can't go here, it always has to be, is that correct?
Single-family homes are permitted under the zoning at a fairly high density. But the comprehensive plan encourages multifamily development, and the zoning certainly allows multifamily development up to 25 units to the acre. The project as it's proposed is a little over 20 units to the acre. From there, you're getting into a highest and best use kind of discussion. It is designated for multifamily in the city's comprehensive plan. It is zoned that way. Mm-hmm. So from a land use and zoning perspective, the proposal is in keeping with the city's policies and plans and land use program. From there, we've looked at the specific zoning requirements and determined that, yes, what has been submitted conceptually complies with the standards that are in the zoning ordinance. Should the use permit be approved, the developers would then have to submit a detailed engineered site plan that staff would review to ensure that all of the standards are in fact met, including the conditions that are recommended in your packet. It could be developed single family under the URH zoning, but because of the history of the property, I would be surprised. Well, I need to be careful what I say here. The logical use is multifamily, both from what was there when it was Bonnevilla to the 2009 proposal that was approved to this project. To ensure that it is single family would probably require downzoning the property.
When you say downzoning, you mean?
The best way to think of downzoning is zoning it down to a lower density of residential use.
Okay. Okay.
If I might butt in here for a moment. I want to answer your question directly. The developer has the option to go single family detached. That would be permitted. I think that's your question. Are they forced to go multifamily? The answer to that is no. That's your question, I believe. Okay, but
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Thank you, Bob. Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes, more to the diagram that we have here. Where is the parking?
The parking is actually everything that isn't everything that isn't building. The parking is spread throughout the property. Let me walk over there.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. Anything else from Mr. Hartley, Commissioners? There being none, thank you, Mr. Hartley.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have several registered speakers. As I call your name, would you restate your name and your address for the record? You will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Our first speaker is Robert Barkley.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Robert Barclay. My business address is 200 High Street, Suite 500, Portsmouth, Virginia 23704. And I'm here today to represent Herman Kittle Properties, who is a large multifamily housing builder who is new to this market. Herman Kittle has a contract to purchase the property from the court-appointed receiver who is currently in control of this property. I just want to briefly talk a little bit from Herman Kittle's perspective what this use permit's about. And what it's really about is redeveloping what has been a challenged vacant parcel of land into a higher quality, market rate, new apartment complex that has modern amenities. Under the ordinance, I'd also like to take a minute to explain why that this use would be appropriate under the zoning for the parcel and under the current regulatory framework. The application as submitted, as the planning staff has stated, meets all the use permit criteria contained in the zoning code of the City of Portsmouth. I think it's important to note that this parcel is currently zoned for multifamily development. That means the price that the buyer is going to pay for it is reflective of multifamily zoning, which means it's a higher price than single-family zoning would provide. In addition to that, Portsmouth has, like every locality in Virginia, a comprehensive plan. That's a document that every city and county has to prepare every so many years in accordance with state law. That comprehensive plan is a grassroots-driven document. I remember when Portsmouth did the current comprehensive plan, there were people drawn from all across the city that sat on committees that helped develop that plan. And under that plan, this property was designated for multifamily use. And it's been used for multifamily all the way going back to when Portsmouth first adopted a zoning ordinance. So clearly that's the precedent for the use of this property, and it's been consistently reaffirmed through the comprehensive plan and through the zoning ordinance. When it comes to what a use permit is for, the city code states very clearly that a use permit is necessary when a particular use requires special consideration because of its location, design, and the methods of operation before it can be deemed appropriate. And then there's specific criteria set out in the zoning code for what a use permit, what's needed for a use permit, and that's in section 40.1-2.3B4. As the planning staff stated, this proposal meets each and every one of the requirements for a use permit under the code. The staff report provides detailed explanations that demonstrate why this proposal meets each of those criteria. And in addition to that, it suggested certain conditions, several of which were voluntarily offered up by Herman Kittle. And Herman Kittle is happy to endorse all of the conditions the planning staff is recommending, and they're happy to go along with those. In particular, some of the conditions we'd like to note that they have voluntarily offered up are the building materials. We're talking about high-quality materials of brick, cement fiberboard, architectural shingles, and aluminum wrought iron style fencing. All of those are costlier materials. And the cost of the materials goes into the number of units. If if you want a higher quality, long-lasting, low-maintenance development, you need the number of units to be able to pay for that. So the number of units are all a function of the price. In addition to that, there's going to be amenities, a swimming pool, playground, and clubhouse. Those are all modern amenities you find in modern apartment complexes. The rents will be market-based, and they'll be $1,000 a month for a one-bedroom, $1,090 for a two-bedroom, and $1,190 for a three-bedroom unit. In addition to that, there's been a traffic analysis done, which shows that this project would have no significant adverse impact on traffic in the region, or on the major arteries that are around it. And that's, again, a traffic engineer has done that study, and those are the conclusions the traffic engineer has come to. And the traffic analysis also notes that actually traffic volume on Greenwood has actually dropped over the past decade.
45 seconds, Mr. Barclay.
Thank you. And so, as I mentioned, this is a challenged piece of property. It's been through some difficult times. The lender on the property has had the court appoint a receiver to try to get this property sold, and these folks have stepped up to make that purchase. If this doesn't happen, then I think the bank will have no choice but to probably end up foreclosing on the property. When it's sold at auction, who knows what you'll get. The other folks that are here will talk a little bit about the company, Herman Kittle, and another gentleman at the end can address any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barclay. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Mr. Barclay? There be none. Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker, Ashley Scott.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley Salt with Herman and Kittle Properties. Our address is 500 East 96th Street, Suite 300, Indianapolis, Indiana. For the point at Greenwood, Herman and Kittle Properties, we have been in existence for over 65 years. Currently, we own and manage around 14,000 units in 15 states, and we have approximately 2,500 units in development. For the point at Greenwood, Herman and Kittle Properties will be the developer, general contractor, manager, and owner. As the property manager, we will have 6 on-site employees, including a regional manager who will travel to the property throughout the month, and also a full-time on-site property manager who will office out of the office that is located at the point at Greenwood. As I mentioned, we are also the general contractor for the point at Greenwood. As the general contractor, we do want to support the local community. So when the process begins for bidding out subcontractors, we will definitely open that up to all local subcontractors and give them a chance to have a bid. Just to give you an idea of what we look for in properties when we're looking to develop housing, some of the reasons why we found Portsmouth appealing was the first one being the land. We look at whether or not the land is zoned correctly, or if there is going to be a rezoning process. In this instance, the point at Greenwood, this land is zoned correctly, so that definitely helps. We also look at the community. Is there good employment growth and potential, and is the employment market good at this point? And Portsmouth definitely has a great community, and they have a great employment market. So we were very happy with that. And then also, we look at the current market, the current rental market. Are the occupancy levels high? Are they a little lower? Obviously, with Portsmouth, they have very high occupancy levels, which leads us to believe, and it is, we have confirmed that there is a need for rental housing within Portsmouth. We also look at the comparable market rentals to see what is currently out there and what we believe we can build and have as well with the apartments that we are proposing. So that's just a little bit of background on Herman and Kittle. Is there any questions?
Any questions or comments, commissioners? There being none, thank you, Ms. Salt. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Ray Smith, Sr.
How do I get this to you?
I think it's you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith, and to commission members, city staff, and members of the audience. My name is Ray Smith, and I live at 1227 Durham Drive in the Cavalier Manor section, and I am the president of the Cavalier Manor Civic League. And just right up front, so to be clear from the beginning, we did reach out to the planning staff through the city website with a letter letting them know that we would be opposing and we would be here to speak against it. I heard in the work session they said that they hadn't heard from anybody, and I know it got down here because a couple of the council members got it also, and they said that they would forward it if it didn't get to the right person, right place. So I did it via the planning department website and the city's website. That's why the council members got it. We're here to establish and to maintain Cavalier Manor as it has been for many, many years as a overall single family community. The drawing that I gave to you from Google, it will show you where this property is in yellow, and the only place in Cavalier Manor that there are apartments are the little small cluster of 24 apartments are called Cavalier Gardens. I believe it's still called that right off Cavalier Boulevard. The Charlestown condos are ownership. The townhouses are ownership. There's also a group of townhouses at Cavalier and Greenwood. They also are ownership. 95% or better of Cavalier Manor community is either single home or homeowners of some type. The Civic League is very much concerned to try to maintain this. If you would look, if you look at the drawing, you can see the close proximity to even single-family homes on Tazewell, and even in this drawing, you will see there are homes valued anywhere from $100,000 to maybe 150, 60,000 along Tazewell, and then over on Greenwood, they run up a little higher, almost about 200,000. And then on the backside of Liberty Street, also, they run the townhouses in the $190,000 to $100,000 range. And we constantly hear this about the density, and one of our points here is that we believe there's too much for this site, too much density. I know way back this was zoned for single-family homes, but there hasn't been any development out there in years and years. And the comprehensive plan needs to be updated to justify that. We feel, the community feels strongly that we want to advocate and push for single homes. At this location, if you skip down to number 3, I'll be skipping around. The number 3, the density of the proposed projects is too great, 280 units. The developer has only established 1.5 spaces, which I haven't heard that come out in the work session, and they will be undesignated parking spaces by residents and visitors. 1.5 spaces where you have 50-some units that have more than 3 bedrooms. The income from this apartment is about $300,000. It'll cost that much just to educate 30 children in the city. There's no provisions for a playground, which I've heard that they will consider that. The crucial thing is who's going to manage it and whether or not they don't have any properties anywhere near us other than Indiana. And there's credibility issues as to whether or not they will be in to make money and gone. And property management is very crucial to apartment complexes. At our call meeting on September 27th, 50 or 60 people unanimously voted for me to come down and express our opposition to this project because it's just too large, and we would like to see single homes. I don't have time to go through it, but I showed you what 13.7 acres will do.
30 seconds left.
13.79 acres will build about 62 homes in $100,000 to $185,000 range. So we're asking the commissioners to deny this request based on the community's opposition, which is great and strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Hold on one second, sir. Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, how many members are in your civic league?
There are approximately about 200 members.
And they've asked you to speak on their behalf, correct?
Yes, sir. At a meeting, I called a meeting on June 27th, and not only the civic members were there, but other members of the community that weren't a part of the civic league, and they all voted unanimously that night for me to represent in opposition.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood. Commissioner G.
Thank you for coming down this evening. I take it that you've been in that community for a while. I mean, I live not too far. I run past there every day, every few days myself. As has been stated, that property has been empty for quite some time.
Yes.
And also, even with the urban residential high, they still could have put single-family homes there. Do you foresee something changing that would make someone want to put single-family homes there now that hadn't existed since it's been available? I'm just wondering if there's something that we're not aware of that would entice someone, whereas there is a buyer who's interested in bringing, in my opinion, a nice-looking community there.
Well, that's something that we're looking at. Even in the meeting, it came out about a senior citizen type community, which was, something to consider. But I don't have a crystal ball, and I can tell you that the reason this property has been vacant for so long is because of the owner of the property, which was the church originally. And the church made an unsuccessful attempt to try to build a project similar, which the community opposed back then also. And then there were financial issues, and which is now they've lost the property. So it's been tied up with the church. That's one of the reasons why it's been vacant for so long. It's not that it hadn't been available, to be truthful. That's why it's been vacant for so long.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Commissioner Thomas.
Hi, Mr. Smith. So for the community, if I heard you guys say you would like the single-family homes,
Yes.
but if that's not an option, would a reduction in the number of buildings for this project, is that something you all have also considered?
No. We would like to see our community to continue and to grow as single-family homes. That's just 95 or better % of the community is that way, and we don't want an influx of apartments and transient folks.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Smith? There being none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Donna Sy.
Sorry about that, Regina.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood.
Good afternoon.
I'm in opposition as well. I'm looking at it from a different point of view, or maybe a similar point of view, is that Portsmouth has all these houses and apartments you're building. It's like we're becoming a I don't know what you call it, urban, I don't want to say anything rude. I'm already being rejected by one of y'all. But I'm just saying that all these apartments and houses in the city, it's just overwhelming the population in the city. And at least one civic league is coming up and saying how their citizens want their neighborhood and their voting precinct to look like. And what I'm saying is the planning department recommends things in spite of what citizens want, and then city council gets it, and they're going to vote no matter what the citizens want. But I'm seeing a group of people who are standing up, the citizens, that this is what they want. They want single-family homes, and that's what they need to have. Thanks for listening.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Sy? Thank you for your comments, Ms. Sy. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our last speaker, Mike Roserer.
Hi, good afternoon. Mike Roderer. My address is 500 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm the Senior Vice President of Herman and Kittle Properties and work with Ashley Salt. I wanted to just offer a few comments with respect to some of the concerns that were brought forth after Rob and Ashley made their presentations. We did have a chance to meet with Ray and the members of the Civic League back in July. As Rob mentioned as part of his presentation, we did offer up some proffers in terms of the fencing in the playground. If the city were to entertain some type of other contribution that would that could go towards either on-site or off-site improvements for park enhancements or other things like that, we've done that in other communities and would certainly be willing to do that in this situation if there were a way to have that work within the city charter or the planning and zoning or other applicable city ordinances. So that's certainly something we'd be willing to work with the Civic Association and the planning department on. In terms of the use and the appropriateness of the site for multifamily, I do hear the concerns. What I have seen, I've been doing this for about 14 years, and Herman and Kittle is in 15 states. Right now, as Ray pointed out, we are not in Virginia. I hired a developer based out of Maryland to start development work for us in Maryland in Virginia about 2 years ago. We currently, including the proposed point at Greenwood, have 3 developments that total a little over 500 units in the works out in Virginia. So we do want to be a presence in the state. We want to be a presence and a good owner-operator of a property in the city of Portsmouth. As Ashley mentioned, we would have several on-site personnel. We have a regional manager structure, so they cover a territory. They report up to a VP regional, and then they report up to the vice president that covers our entire property management, which operates our portfolio of about 140 properties. In terms of the property itself, we have developed the site plan to conform with the zoning ordinance. We are fully committed to adhere to the recommendations or required commitments that were in the staff report. I think in terms of one item that Ray mentioned with respect to the parking, we did speak with the association about that. Typically, we find for a development of this nature that 1.5 spaces per unit to 2 spaces per unit are what most city ordinances require. In this case, we are following the ordinance and do expect that it will accommodate the number of cars the residents that live and occasionally visit at the property would be sufficient to accommodate that. Lastly, I will mention the single family versus multifamily. Given the property's historical use, which I know we're here to talk about the proposed use, but the historical use and the nature of the zoning and how many units per acre it permits is what drives the pricing. The bank in its receivership process is trying to recoup the previous mortgage it had, and so it's priced the property accordingly, and we have come in and negotiated a contract that's in line with those expectations. So those cover the few items that I wanted to address, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes, in your three-story unit, will there be elevators?
No, sir. Those will be corridors with stairs will service the units on each floor.
It's a hard walk on Saturday with groceries.
Well, that's a good point. I can tell you that we've built this type of property in several different markets without elevators, and it's been well received and it's been successful.
Probably low back diabetes too, huh? They get a lot of exercise.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. Commissioner G.
Thank you for coming today. Do you guys have an established buyer persona? What do you envision the typical resident being for this community?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So we have, I think I'll answer that in maybe two ways if I can. I think generally speaking, aside from some of the comments regarding single family and home ownership for their property, what I see here is in this very specific part of Portsmouth, there's single family homes and there's older multifamily residential, and then all of the newer development is occurring, closer towards the water. I mean, across the street, for example. And so what we have tried to do in this site is create more of a workforce housing model that accommodates individuals and families that are between, say, 80% of area median income and 110% of area median income. So again, it's not a subsidized low-income housing development. It's really meant to fill a need between those types of properties, which I do believe in having a need for those. But there's also this gap between those and then properties that are trying to command $1.40 to $1.70 a square foot closer to the water. So it's really meant for working individuals and families. We do think there will be some single folks. We think there'll be couples without children. We do expect families that could have 1 to 3 children based on having some 3-bedroom units. So I think it would be a good combination of those demographics in terms of household size as well as income.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Commissioner Thompson?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much for being interested in developing in Portsmouth. I would like to go back to your comment about the economics of the proposed development. And I believe you said, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that the controller of the land at this point has an asking price of X, and in order to be able to make this project a go, meaning to make the pro forma work, you have to have a certain number of units, and it is 280. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the project, because of the price of the land, is what's dictating what can be put on the land. And if it's multifamily, there's going to have to be that many units for anyone to be able to put anything on the land. So that's the economics. The single family would be nice, I think. I'm sure it would be wonderful, but it can't be done economically. So am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, Ms. Thompson, that's our perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I have a question for you, sir. I understand she said something about the contracting and things of that nature. You're going to sub a lot of the work out. Is this going to be presented to minority contractors as well?
We don't single out contractors one way or the other. We welcome any qualified contractor who is interested in proposing on the job. A lot of developments that we utilize tax credit financing for, which this, of course, is not. Some of those have an MB, WB requirement. Some don't. But in either case, we don't discriminate on contractors. We welcome any and all qualified bids, and we want to award contracts to folks who have a reasonable price that will perform good work and result with a good product for us and the community.
That's fair. Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Thomas?
Hi, how you doing, sir?
Hi.
So, 2 things. One, with the design of the building, the entryway, they have like doors and then a common, I guess, stairway type access to each individual apartment, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Would you guys consider I don't know, to me, those type of entryways are not the safest. We've had another design at another building we looked at and just discussing that type of entryway where, I don't know, it's just secluded, like if a single female is going in. And that to me just seems a little dangerous sometimes to have those secluded entryways like that. And also, you mentioned that you guys are going to add a playground to this site, correct?
Yes.
But you haven't decided where and how you're going to be able to space it or fit it in the current layout.
That's correct. That was one of the items that was, I guess, left outstanding when we were working with
Okay.
John on the plans that we submitted. But like I said, we're certainly willing to adhere to the commitment.
Okay.
And we'll have to work with our design team in conjunction with John to make that happen.
And that playground is for residents only to that community?
Yes.
Okay, but you mentioned that you've made improvements to surrounding communities in the past, is that, and when you say improvements, what do you mean, like
Yeah.
additional playgrounds or?
Well, so we have done a combination of things. On a few developments, we've donated land for parkland. Given the economics we just talked about, that wasn't feasible here. Some cities will assess a park impact fee that is contributed towards a general fund or a fund or an account that's earmarked for enhancing current parks or building new parks. We've done that in the past as well. But the playground for this that would be on this property would be for the residents of the point at Greenwood.
So that leads to my next question. So the playground wasn't considered, and Mr. G asked the question of who's your demographic, I guess who you're marketing these apartments to. Do you expect families? Are you marketing towards singles? I mean, because we talked about the impact to school, to the local school, so what are you expecting? How many more kids will, be going to that local school, which might experience some overcrowding already?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So I think with the mix of units we have, mostly two-bedroom units with, one-bedroom units and three-bedroom units kind of on each side of that spectrum. I would certainly expect in, some 2 or 3-bedroom units that we would have families. When we do marketing, when we do our market analysis, as Ashley talked about, when we're looking at things like household growth and population growth and current demand for apartment homes, one of the things that our market analysts do is draw out a market area that's typically the city limits or a lesser part of a city or county. And most of our demand, how we present proposed developments to cities, to lenders and investors, and even internally is we are not expecting, so we're not doing a marketing outreach to the state of Virginia, or we're not sending marketing to Richmond or other areas, right? So we would expect most of our residents to come from the community or very nearby surrounding communities, but most of them coming from within the community. And so I do understand the point of perhaps, depending on how these school districts are drawn out, that this new development could attract folks from one part of the community to this part and create some lopsidedness. But to be quite direct and just honest, that's something that's very hard, I think, for us to predict.
Appreciate that honesty.
Could I approach the screen and answer or kind of address your first question about
Sure.
the entrances?
Sure.
So every building with a 2 actually has a direct entrance to the unit from the ground level. So there are doors that go to the ground units, and then there are the doors that go, these are stacked flats, one unit on top of another. So the second story units, the access is from the ground floor, and then you just go up the So those are very
Yeah.
visible. There's no kind of
Door.
shadow space.
Door.
Buildings that are labeled 2/3 and 3, those are the types of buildings that have both this type of entrance as well as a corridor entrance. So there is that corridor where you can see through it, but once you get out on the periphery, then yes, there is, you can't see what's necessarily going on. I would, in our experience, we have not had issues with that, with the exception of one property I can think of that's in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And the solution to that was we put cameras at the ends of each of these breezeways and then did a central monitoring station that was, it wasn't monitored by someone 24/7, but it was during the day when management staff were there. And then there was, of course, a recording that lasted for a number of weeks and then was deleted. So if the commission or folks feel like that's a concern or might help with any potential concerns, that's something that we can certainly consider doing. It's not a cheap item, but not an incredibly high-cost item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any other questions or comments? Commissioners? There being none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Youngblood?
Commissioner Youngblood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm looking out on the audience, it's unusual to have this number of people here for 4 agenda items. And maybe you're here for the entertainment factor. It could be like the cut of my coat. I don't know. But I have a suspicion that many of you are here for this particular item. That being the case, could I get a show of hands of the people in the audience who are in favor of this proposal? Okay, I count 4. How about the number of people that are opposed to this? Whole lot more. Okay, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-16-08. If there's anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward at this time, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Tyrone Robertson. I reside at 319 Wynn Street. There's a reason that I'm having problems today. Last Friday, a letter came to my house about people who are facing this property to try to submit some type of correspondence, email, or whatever. Well, may I please approach that for a second, please?
It's okay.
That's my house. Now, I also want to apologize to the Civic League. I have worked in the city of Chesapeake as an educator, teacher. However, this year I retired June 18th. I want to say that one of the reasons I have not been able to go to any type of meetings is because educators have to check papers. I have many papers to check for the state of Virginia as well as other papers. The city of Chesapeake was the first city in the state of Virginia to complete all the SOLs. We get to work for it. However, I brought all of that money home to the city of Portsmouth where I spent it. I also like to say, I'm speaking on behalf of my mother. My mother was trying to get some of the other persons who were facing Greenwood Drive to come. First, we had to write up her paper. My mother was happy. Around 3:30, my mother became ill. She had a blood clot. Please pardon me. She had a blood clot, and she had to go to the Mary View. She had 3 options, but one of them was to just let it go and live for a few days or a few weeks. The second option was to have it cut off. The third option was to have a surgery. She was advised not to, but my mother, a Christian woman, my sister and I talked it over with the doctor, and we decided to have the surgery. Well, she didn't talk too much Saturday morning. Sunday, she ate. I stayed with my mother every night. I had to go home, take my own medication. My mother died at 3-something Sunday. But the reason I'm here is because, as you know, we all cherish mothers. My mother's wish was to have that blocked. My mother's wish was to be heard. She had something wrote. I can do it. My nephew is a resident of Richmond, Virginia, and he is here to do that. But I know I have 5 minutes, and I just want to say that my mother cherished the fact that she could live in Cavalier Manor.
55 seconds left, Mr. Roberts.
Excuse me. It's
You have
up?
50 seconds left.
Okay, she gave it up. She lived it, and she raised her 3 children who all became educators, and she would like for the city to please keep Cavalier Manor as it is. I'm sorry to be a disturbance today, but I had to cherish my mother's last will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Commissioners, any questions or comments, Mr. Robertson? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's anyone else here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application.
Afternoon. My name is Gary Harris. I live at 1105 Warfield Drive here in Portsmouth. I'm working with the Civic League on a project called Eco Districts, and just want to share some insights and thoughts with you this afternoon on this particular project. First off, it was observed that there was a limited engagement by the developer with the community in terms of actually performing a charrette, which would allow for community residents to have additional buy-in, and also insights into the actual site design and site application and amenities and features as well. This is evidenced by the oversight of the need for a recreation area and other amenities within the development zone. There's no specific community benefits agreement. Typically, in other cities with such projects, which try to spur redevelopment in areas, there's a community benefits agreement, which can focus on such things as labor, and permanent jobs, et cetera, i.e. between 25 and 50% of the labor force used to develop this property could and should come from the local areas within Cavalier Manor. There's no affordable housing commitment at all for the project. Typically for projects like this, even in larger cities with larger projects, several $1,000s higher in value, there's typically an affordable housing component with affordable rent controls as well. The project itself would not add to the environmental features of Cavalier Manor, including its ecosystems as well as its tree canopy. The project does not serve as a catalytic project for the community as well, i.e. spurring similar development or development that is needed to further enhance the community. Also, the project could spur gentrification of the community as well. Bringing in higher incomes could spread beyond the boundaries of the current project as zoned and create a gentrified neighborhood. Also, there's no preference for current residents in terms of available apartments, i.e. Residents within the community should have a first preference clause in terms of available housing for the residents which are available. It doesn't seem to integrate into schemes which are already underway within the community, like eco districts, which focus on equity and resilience and climate protection, livability, etc. There's no assessment of the current community to see how it fits into its current development schemes, i.e. the history of the community, the culture of the community itself, doesn't seem to add value from that perspective. It was said that traffic loading analysis was conducted, but the Civic League hasn't seen it. It doesn't seem to improve the livability of the community as well, i.e. Pedestrian and bike lanes, walking pathways, etc. None of that is reflected in the current design, and does not seem to spur ecosystem development within the Cavalier Manor community as well. Also, it doesn't seem to add for the walkability of the community. You know that there's it doesn't network with the outer reaches of the community beyond its boundary. So there's connectivity and networking issues as well. And finally, the proposed complex, with all due respect to the architect, is not that attractive. I've seen other multifamily houses built in
59 seconds left, Mr. Harrison.
In similar venues which have better lines, better features, and better curb appeal. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Harrison? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's anyone else here who would like to address UP-16-08.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Gill. I'm with CB Richard Ellis. We are the receiver for this property. The current ownership is still New Bethel Church, which is adjacent to the property. And I believe they purchased the property with good intentions, which was to eliminate the blight that had occurred at this site with an older 50-plus-year-old product and that had not been managed well. So I understand why they did it. However, they have been unable to economically redevelop the site. So the bank and the court has asked my company to step in and try to help facilitate the sale and the redevelopment of this site. The zoning of the property is zoned, as has been mentioned, is urban high-density residential, which accommodates the type of product and the type of development which is being proposed. We really shouldn't be here today. The only reason I think we're here today is because the City Council of the City of Portsmouth wanted to make certain that no one used low-income tax credits for any developments, any multifamily developments within the city. So this really by right is exactly what should be done with this site, and it is by far the highest and best use for the site and will create the most tax dollars for the City of Portsmouth. This project is not a low-income tax credit project. It is a market rate project. These are not unemployed people. These are employed people. These are people who are teachers within your city. They are firemen. They are working at restaurants. These are employed people who qualify from a credit and a criminal background check. Herman and Kittle is not going to develop a $20 million project and walk away from it. They're here for the long run, and they've invested a lot of money to get to this point, and it's interesting to see the process and how it's gotten sort of off track. This is the type of redevelopment that this neighborhood needs. This is the type of project which will develop jobs and tax base for the city of Portsmouth, which it so desperately needs. And this site has been in this condition for many years, and I marketed it for 2 or 3 years, and Herman Kittle was the best developer we could find who would go under contract and pursue the development of this site. We should be welcoming them to the neighborhood.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Sir, if you'd come back to the podium for a moment. If I'm not an economist nor a banker, so I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. What you're saying is the bank took the property back.
No, sir. It's
because it was in default.
It's in default, and
so now the price that the bank wants to get for it in order to come clean on this is what's determining how this property has to be used. In essence, we are being asked to bail out the bank.
No, sir. What's being suggested by the neighbors is that they have the right to downzone somebody else's property, and that will impact directly New Bethel Church, which is the borrower for the property. They're the ones that will have to pay the bank back the money that they borrowed to tear down the blight that had occurred there and try to get a new, better development created in that site.
Great.
So no, it's not. You're not asked to bail out the bank.
Yeah.
The bank's going to get their money. If they get it, don't get it. They'll get it from other property owned by New Bethel Church, is my understanding.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Gill? So what you just basically telling me, from what you were saying, Commissioner Youngblood, you said we're bailing out the church?
Well, no, you're not bailing out anybody. This site is zoned for high-density residential development. Its value is based on the number of units which can be developed on the site. It was that way when New Bethel purchased it. It is that way today. It is that way tomorrow. You can't take away people's property rights by downzoning their property without compensation. It's not appropriate.
Yeah, we're not downzoning anything. I understand all that.
What's being asked is that you go to single family, which is a completely separate zoning, and it imputes a separate value for the property.
I understand all that.
Yes,
I
sir.
was just asking a question about, because Mr. Youngblood just pointed out something about how that thing works, and I was just asking that question. What's happening with that? He just sparked something. That's all. That's what happened. That's why I asked the question I asked.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't answer it right, but I didn't mean to come across as aggressive. But the property is currently zoned for the use that's being proposed.
I approved it. Trust me, I know.
Yes, sir.
About almost 8 years ago, I know.
Okay. All
Trust
right.
me,
Well,
I know what
thank
it's
you.
approved for. So I was just asking a question again about, could you say that again, Commissioner Youngblood, what you said? It was about the ownership of the property, right? Who is it like bailing out?
I want to understand how the money flowed, who was on.
Cut your mic on.
You're correct. I'm trying to understand exactly how the money flowed and what's setting the sales price and what's being asked of us.
Okay.
Along those lines.
So I guess if I can answer that, the sales price is the bank is taking a loss no matter what. So that's going to happen anyway. What they have rights to then do is go back to the borrower for additional assets and additional dollars, which I have nothing to do with.
Okay.
What we've been asked, my company was asked by the bank and the court, because New Bethel had been unable to secure financing and was incapable of redeveloping the site and in default under their loan, the court asked us to step in to try to find the best possible developer to come in and fill those shoes and create a $20+ million development on this property on Greenwood Drive. This is not they're using good quality materials. They're renting to employed people
I know.
who have credit checks and criminal backgrounds. This is a long-term value. You can't invest that money and then just say, I'm going to walk away and let it fall down on itself. That's not how real estate development and finance works.
Gotta let him speak. Yeah, but I'm talking to him. I'm talking to him.
Anything else?
No, sir, that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering my question, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's anyone else here who would like to address UP-16-08. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, any further discussion on this item? There being none, Chair is in need of a motion. Commissioner Vaughn.
I make a motion that we recommend with the 5 conditions that we approved.
Okay, Chair has received the motion. Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. Chair is in need of a second. Commissioner Thompson.
I second that motion.
It has been motioned and properly second. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-16-08 with conditions. You may vote electronically. The motion failed by a vote of 4-3.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next case is UP-16-09. Just going to give them a moment. He already had his 5 minutes. He could still, y'all was asking. Yeah. Tell Mr. Williams to chill out. Okay, our next case, UP-16-09 Uptown, Benjamin Washington, excuse me. Y'all ready? Benjamin Washington of Home Builders, Inc. is requesting a use permit to build a 3-unit townhouse at 601 Jamestown. The comprehensive plan's generalized future land use map recommends mixed-use development on the parcel. The parcel is approximately 0.13 acres and is identified as Tax Map 169, Parcel 400. Staff Coordinator Brian Sweats.
Okay, this is a picture of the current site. It is currently vacant. You can see that the surrounding properties are all Zone D2 form-based code. The surrounding properties on Jamestown, King, and County in this area are zoned townhouse small apartment frontage, which is what this applicant is asking for. To the north of the site is an existing parking lot which services a city apartment complex. To the east and to the south are existing single-family residential structures. To the west, there is also some single-family residential, but directly across the street, you'll see a vacant lot. I believe this is used as a parking lot for a neighboring church. The applicant is proposing a 3-unit townhouse. Each unit would be 1,650 square feet. It would be 3 bedrooms. They would sell for somewhere between $160,000 and $185,000. The applicant has designed and laid the site out in accordance with the requirements of the form-based code. So for example, you'll see that the structure has been pushed up towards the street so that the front steps are on the sidewalk or on the front property line. This is done on purpose to try to get people outside, having eyes on the street, interacting with their neighbors and their community. This is the proposed front elevation. This meets the requirements of the design standards for townhouse small apartment frontage in the form-based code. Those design standards have specific material requirements for things like the building materials, the doors, the windows, the roof. Again, all those have been met and approved. The proposed left and right elevations, there are conditions at the end of the staff report that state that these will have to change because walls facing the street have to have a minimum of 20% window coverage. They also cannot go more than 15 feet with a blank wall. So this will have to change, but the materials themselves meet the requirements of the form-based code. And then finally, the rear of the structure. The rear will have a 6-foot wooden privacy fence along it to help shield it from the existing house to the south. Staff recommends approval of this project. It's in conformance with the requirements of the comprehensive plan, the form-based code, both of which were vetted by the community. This is what the community said they want to have in their neighborhood, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sweats, have you gotten any feedback from any of the neighbors? I see that you sent something to 4 neighboring properties. Unfortunately, the city of Portsmouth is one, the church is another, there's a holding company, and then looks like 1 privately owned residence. But have you gotten any feedback at all?
I have not received any feedback.
Thank you, sir.
We also have the sign posted there to let the neighbors know, but no, we have not heard anything.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Mrs. Sweats? There being none, thank you, sir. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of registered speakers. Our first speaker is Roland Carpenter. Mr. Roland? Wrong case?
Wrong case.
No registered speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-16-09. If there is anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward at this time, state your name and your address, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Chair is in need of a motion. Commissioner G?
I move for acceptance of UP 16-09.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Chair is in need of a second. Commissioner Youngblood?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, can we make sure that these conditions, if you want them, that are at the end of the staff report included in the motion?
Say it again, sir. I'm sorry. With conditions.
I would like to amend my motion.
Thank you, sir.
To accept UP 16-09 with stated conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Chair received the motion. Chair is in need of a second. Commissioner Youngblood?
I've seconded that.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-16-09 with stated conditions. You may vote electronically. Someone didn't vote?
Oh, my goodness. Just keep going.
This item is approved 6-0. No, he won't go sit. You probably should have took a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Our next item, Z-16-
Think I should?
well, we can go ahead and roll with it.
You
I
want to roll
guess.
with it? Okay, go ahead.
Our next item, Z-16-03, Uptown, Roland Carpenter, Get It Industrial Marine LLC, is requesting that the regulating plan for the D2 form-based code area be changed from downtown townhouse small apartment frontage to workshop frontage for for the properties located at 1609, 1613, and 1617 County Street, and 1622 and 1624 Columbia Street. The purpose of this request is to allow for the operation of the contractor's office in an existing vacant building. The comprehensive plan's generalized future land use map recommends mixed-use development on the parcel. The parcels total approximately 0.7 acres and are also identified as tax map 97, parcels 680, 670, 660, 790, and 800. Staff Coordinator Brian Sweats.
Okay, again, in the form-based code area, we have these properties that are outlined or hatched here on the right. On the site is an existent vacant building. It was previously used as an auto mechanic shop. It still is allowed to be used as an auto mechanic shop. Has that allowed use for approximately 1 more year. To the north of the site are existing single-family houses, a church, and a vacant lot in this picture to the left of the church, which I believe is used as a parking lot for the church. To the east is a light industrial business. To the south is a paper street and ingrown landscaping and trees between the site and an abandoned railroad line. And to the east is an existing single-family structure. The proposed use of the site as determined by the zoning administrator as a contractor's office. The applicant has described that this property would be used as office space and also for the storage of industrial machinery and equipment. Outlined in black here on the applicant's layout, these are the sites that would be subject to having their frontage changed. You can see on the survey the existing building, and then existing concrete and parking in the front, and then chain link fence surrounds the interior of the site. Again, the existing frontage is townhouse small apartment. The proposed change would be for the sections along the frontage here on County to change it to workshop frontage to allow for the contractor's office. Please be mindful that this would also change the frontage for the properties across the street so that they would also have their use and design standards for their properties change if this were approved. Staff recommends denial of this application for a couple of reasons. First is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has identified this corridor as being suitable for mixed-use development, not for industrial development. Staff also believes that the comprehensive plan clearly states that the industrial uses are incompatible with neighboring residential uses. This is a comprehensive plan, but this is also just kind of general basic planning theory. And finally, in the comprehensive plan, this neighborhood is identified as needing substantial development. Staff believes that putting an industrial use here would inhibit the ability to redevelop this neighborhood with residential or mixed-use property because it's not compatible with industrial use. The requested use would also be incompatible with neighboring city investments. The city has spent a lot of money in the behavioral health building and the social services building to the west, the Westbury neighborhood to the east. Both of these are the types of developments that put a lot of people on the street. We think that if this area is going to be redeveloped, it should be either for residential or it should be for uses that would help support those existing uses, not something that would be something totally different that would not encourage people to be on the street in a mixed-use type environment. And finally, this has the potential to be considered a spot zoning. The workshop frontage incorporates a number of industrial uses. The closest industrial use to these properties is about 2,000 feet away. In the form-based code regulating plan, it's anticipated that industrial zonings would be placed further to the west down County Street, down towards the new MLK connector, not in the center where is more planned for residential and mixed-use development. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Youngblood?
Once again, the same question. Have you gotten any feedback from any of the neighbors?
We have not, no.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood. Any other commissioners, any questions, comments? Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, the properties, that previous slide where you said the other properties across the street, what their frontage would change? What are those properties right now? I didn't.
Those
you're talking about
properties
those would
are
change
the
to-
church and then the vacant lot
So they
next
would
door.
change to industrial workshop as well.
Correct. So a church is allowed in the workshop frontage, but the ability for the church to either add on or remodel itself, or for how their vacant lot next door could be developed, would have to be done in a way that's compatible with more of an industrial style development than what's anticipated in the townhouse small apartment, which generally focuses on either residential style development or very light commercial development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Thompson?
Can we go back to the slide that shows the color zones for the different uses?
Yep.
That one. Okay, so you showed it looked like you showed 3 different sides of this property had light industrial zoning in the pictures. The railroad side, the one that you said was light industrial, and then the church and the blank empty lot are across the street. So is that the blue bar going across the bottom?
Okay, so the blue bar, the blue bar is not in existence currently. What the blue bar signifies is that they believe an alley should have been placed in here at some point for development. That's probably not going to happen, but that was what was envisioned in the regulating plan. I would suggest that we kind of ignore this for the sake of this application. The only existing light industrial use is on these parcels here. There are other light industrial uses down the street to the west, but adjacent to the site, you've got single-family residential, you've got the church and its parking lot, and then more single-family residential here. And then to the rear, it's just vacant.
So is there a difference between light industrial and how this property has been deemed?
So light industrial is what you tended to find under the old zoning. And so, for example, the site in question had a light industrial zoning which allowed the auto mechanics, which is was still allowed for up to another year because it was an existing non-conforming use. Like I said, the other light industrial uses that you find are further to the west. Under the form-based code, most of those light industrial uses were grouped into this workshop frontage, which kind of combined some light industrial, a very small amount of heavy industrial, and turned it into what they call a workshop. In the form-based code, it was envisioned that the uptown neighborhood would start transferring away from the old light industrial uses, with the exception of down County Street towards the MLK connector, and start transforming into more of a residential mixed-use community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Williams?
So, Brian, let me be absolutely sure here. One, to redo this, it is not, it is against the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
And 2, we changed the zoning of the church.
Yes.
And the lot next door.
Yes.
Thank you.
The house next door.
No, not to the house, to the vacant lot into
In the
the
church.
church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Anything else, Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Sweats. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have 2 registered speakers. Our first speaker is Roland Carpenter.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Chairwoman. I pray the Lord take my tongue right now and let's clean this up. First and foremost, I'm President and Chief Executive Officer of GI Industrial Marine. My business is located at 2100 Columbia Street in Portsmouth, less than 0.5 miles away from this location, through which I have the title that we purchased just yesterday. Not the title, but we purchased the building yesterday. This building here on 7/10 of an acre that we plan to occupy, I want to explain light industrial. We are going to use the building for additional office space. We're not open to the public, and we will be using it to make insulation pads in support of Huntington Ingalls Newport News, who has just given us an RFQ that could go upward of $2 $3 million or more. I have since May this year signed $9 million worth of contracts. And I've went from the time and I am in tears, from the time I did this application in March to now, I have went from 20 employees to 75 employees right here in the area. We are not open to the public. We're only looking to use this building as is for additional office space and to start a bit of manufacturing to give us more diversification in our business. Now, I have read the comprehensive plan from beginning to end. I've looked at the manifestations of business, the appearance of buildings, the schools, and the implementation of the whole plan. And I've seen where the D2 form-based code, which was amended in 2010, took the restrictions of light industrial and the use of the properties from the property owner and prohibited our use of the building. So we're talking about something that happened 6 years ago that stagnated the use of the property. Were it not for that, this owner would have been able to use this for automotive or light industrial as it's been used next door. We wouldn't even have this issue. You know, so at the predicate of what we're talking about allowing a business who's operating $10 million in gross sales right now and 2,500 square foot of property down the street to operate in a building with no more than 5 employees, who's going to operate an office and the additional employees off-site. That's our work environment that you see out the window. I have 15 people working $1 million contract, 1.3 in Charleston, South Carolina right now, and all of the revenues come back to Portsmouth. I have been given a business by the Almighty God that I hope to keep in the city of Portsmouth, and in order to do that, we have to find suitable properties to operate. Our business is a mobile on-site ship repair service, which means we store our equipment, we run our offices, we deploy to the jobs in marine environments. We complete the jobs, we come back home and invoice, and we send our people home to enjoy their families. Now, all of these buildings that I've heard so much about today, I hope to be one of those employers that brings 200 to 300 people employment here in the city of Portsmouth and the revenues to go along with that. But in order to operate, I need to work with landowners like this one who has an additional 7/10 acre of property that I see our ability to bring upward of over $100 million worth of sales in the next 5 years. I am in an imminent award situation right now for an $80 million contract with the Navy for 5 years. I'm Hub Zone, 8A, DBE, VET, and SWAM. I am the holy grail of contracting. And I don't mean to say I, like somebody else we already know, but I am standing at the precipice, 100% owner of a large business in need of a partner with our partner to do more for the city of Portsmouth.
60 seconds left, sir.
And this opportunity that we have with Ms. Diane gives us a footprint outside of the footprint that we already have. So we're not hovering around 18-wheelers, which is what we're doing right now at the end of County Street. But we'll be able to store more equipment and deploy our people from there. It just makes sense. Now, the building across the street, the church, I don't think they have any plans of becoming an apartment or anything in the near future. And I spoke with the people who live in the house on the corner, and they, like most of the residents, welcome our business platform. So again, it's your decision. We're trying our best to stay in Portsmouth in this area that allows us to be able to operate our marine NACE code. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Thompson.
Could you please, you said you make insulation?
Yes, one of the components of our business, we're a full-service ship repair company, but we have acquired a division that makes insulation pads. This is like thermal insulation for bulkheads and for exhaust pipes that go on the diesel engines for ships. We absolutely take and sew the pads, and we stockpile them, and then we'll take them to Newport News and install them. This is one of the things we'll be offering to Huntington Ingalls, the ability to manufacture pads, just taking cotton stuff and putting it in between cloth and sewing these and then taking them on location to Newport News where we'll be installing them on the new carriers.
So cotton is the material that they're fabricated from?
It's a tent map cotton, yes.
Okay, so what equipment do you have that you'll be storing here? Sewing machines.
Sewing machines, yes. Sewing machines. That'll be the first line of equipment that we bring into the building to start our manufacturing sector. And we have some guys and girls of all ages that are very good at what they do. But you can't do this in the neighborhood. You know, what we do on location at maritime institutions. But we have to have a place to store materials and generate these things from.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, hi. Sounds like you have a great business.
Yes.
I'm glad you're in Portsmouth with your business and hope that you stay.
Thanks.
However, my question is, what are you going to be storing these insulation pads in this building in addition to your industrial sewing machines?
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to make sure you guys knew. We are not planning any exterior storage. What we hopefully will plan one day is, unless the city has better plans for the property, if we become lucrative enough to work within the form-based code to develop a shop 2 stories to code, we're going to work with their office to do something more attractive that gives us more. But for right now, yes, we'll be taking the raw materials, storing them in a closet, and they'll be making the pads based on patterns given to us by Huntington Ingalls, and we'll use some of the building to store those until we take them out to install those. Other than that, the raw panel installations that we install, they will be given that to us off-site at Huntington Ingalls, and we will be supplying insulators, first, second, and third class, to go straight to Huntington Ingalls and work from. So again, I'll only have like maybe 4 or 5 supervisors working in this building, 2 or 3 fabricators, and we're using parking behind the building. There are no current plans to change the existing building until we present something that is within the D2 form-based code.
Okay. Do you foresee, with that, thank you for explaining that, do you foresee a lot of truck traffic for your pickup and delivery?
No. You know, I have right now about 5 pickup trucks. And I'm telling you, we do a lot with a little bit. We have generated over $17 million worth of gross sales in that little 2,600 square foot building we have alone. I have 5 employees working inside. Everybody else works in the environments and they go home. You know, and it's going to be the same thing down here. This just gives us, I tell you, I have like no more space to work with down there. This just gives us a little bit more space to put a couple of supervisors, a couple of good fabricators, but most of our people respond directly to this shipyard or Norfolk Naval Shipyard or Huntington Ingalls, and then I instruct them to go spend time with your families. That's what we are. We're a mobile ship repair company, and we're full service. Our approach and why we look to partner with you guys is that there are a lot of bigger companies who pledge allegiance to us. Advex Corporation, Epsilon Corporations, a lot of those companies already work for us. We don't take exception to some of the things that they take exception to. So essentially, we're the general contractors today. And we're bringing those revenues to the city of Portsmouth right now. So what we're looking to do now is expand our footprint and offer some service manufacturing so that when we get outside of the 8A program and whatnot, we'll still have services that we can offer. I don't want to hire 200 people and then 3 or 4 years from now have nothing for them to do. So we're diversifying a little bit.
Anything else, Commissioner Thomas?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any other commissioners? Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Diane Sproul.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Diane Chapman Sproul, and I am the trustee for my mother, Bernadette Chapman, who's the owner of the property. I just wanted to let you know that my father, Billy Chapman, opened this building back in about 1962, and he was an upholsterer. He put seat covers on, convertible tops, windshields. And until he died in 2001, that was his business. And I would love to keep the building and be able to pay my taxes and have a renter, somebody that, that will work and make money for the city of Portsmouth, paying their taxes too. And I would just like for you, I know the zoning changed, but I would really appreciate it if you could see that this will work. This will work. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Any questions or comments, commissioners? Thank you so much, Ms. Brewer. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a public hearing on item Z-16-03. If there's anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward at this time, state your name and your address, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, any discussions, any questions? If there being none, chairs in need of a motion. Commissioner Youngblood.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z-1603 as requested.
Chairs received the motion. Chairs in need of a second. Commissioner Vaughn.
Second that motion. That motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically.
One unreadiness, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Beg pardon?
So a vote yes is a vote for the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Vote to approve.
Vote to approve Z-16-03. That is the recommendation. We're voting electronically. This item is approved by a vote of 5-2. Our next item, CA-16-01, citywide. The City of Portsmouth is proposing amendments to the zoning ordinance pertaining to waste-related services, including the definitions, use types, use table, and standards of the ordinance to address transfer station facilities and construction demolition debris, CDD, landfills. These uses would be allowed in the industrial IN district only after obtaining a use permit from City Council. These amendments would not apply to any existing facilities and are necessary to anticipation of changes in the regional solid waste services in Portsmouth. Our Staff Coordinator, John Hartley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, what is proposed is our amendments to the zoning ordinance to deal with two uses that are in the waste-related services category or use type. The two uses are construction demolition debris landfills, often called CDD landfills. And essentially, these are what it sounds like. It's construction material, grubbing waste, concrete, inert material. Sometimes yard waste can be put into the CDD landfill. The second use is a transfer station. Essentially, a transfer station is where your garbage, your house-to-house garbage trucks go. They dump it on a concrete or asphalt or the floor of a building, and they load it in and they compact it. They load it into a truck to transfer it to the landfill. Neither of those uses are currently included in the zoning ordinance. We have a CDD landfill that's currently in operation, and we are now discussing the potential of having a transfer station that could be built in Portsmouth to handle its day-to-day household trash in the future with the SIPSA deals that are being discussed as over the last couple of months. What is essentially proposed is to add the definitions for those two uses to the definitions section and to the use table, to allow a transfer station or a CDD landfill only with a use permit in the industrial IN district, which is our heavy industrial district, or in the case of a CDD landfill, the preservation government district, which is what the current landfill is zoned. Each of these uses includes, above and beyond just the requirement for a use permit, what I would generally refer to as performance standards for the location and siting, the design standards, the operational standards, the application requirements, which really are fairly robust in the sense that it requires that you submit fairly extensive information about what's proposed, what the plans are, how it fits into the regional system, what volumes can be anticipated in the future, et cetera, which then sets the stage for all of the locational design and operational criteria. And the provisions also include emergency provisions because of the nature of waste-related services. There are times when either nature or man or machinery makes it difficult to necessarily adhere to every standard day after day after day. And so we've incorporated into the ordinance the authority of the city manager to essentially set aside in an emergency situation either ordinance requirements or conditions as long as it does not jeopardize public health or safety. Finally, the ordinance does include for transfer stations a violation abatement fund. Essentially, that is a fund put up by the operator of the facility to pay for outside labor to clean up the highway corridors leading to the transfer site should the operator not do it himself. So it's I'll call it a small nest egg and an attempt to make sure that any loose materials that fly out of trucks, et cetera, is picked up within a certain distance of the transfer station. With that, I'll try to answer any questions. I believe that although they're somewhat lengthy and fairly detailed, I would hope they'd be self-explanatory and for the most part, and if I can answer any questions, I will.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes. Forgive my voice. For some reason, every time I come to these meetings, I lose my voice. But can you give us an overall view of why we want to do this now?
In the big picture, you would hope that the zoning ordinance covers virtually all uses that may be out there that come knocking on your door. That's a tough thing to do because there's so many different uses out there. We have a CDD landfill. If they ever need to expand or renew their permits, and we don't have a zoning category or a zoning use for them, we would have to amend the ordinance then in order to address any additional approvals they might need to expand. The same is true if there is a transfer station that is proposed in Portsmouth as part of the current regional solid waste agreement deal that's being worked on by all the municipalities with SIPSA. And they decide that part of that requires a transfer station in Portsmouth. Again, that transfer station would be a central point for the trucks, the garbage, the neighborhood garbage trucks to pick up your garbage, take it to this transfer station, and transfer it onto a single truck rather than running the garbage trucks out to Suffolk back and forth. It's really a matter of economics. It's cost savings to not have to run every garbage truck that extra distance out to Suffolk and back. Again, if we don't have regulations in the zoning ordinance and we don't have a use, then we're going to have to deal with that issue in a more emergency kind of a situation. As it's drafted, staff believes that this gives us the tools to consider, fully evaluate, establish conditions, and if it meets our criteria and the approval of the community, be able to approve a transfer station or an expansion of the CDD landfill. So right now we don't have any tools. We don't have any leverage per se to deal with these uses should they walk in the door. So this gives us that tool, those tools and that leverage.
So if I understand you correctly, we're trying to put ourselves in a position to be able to control these issues as they arise in the future.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. I just want to say, John, I commend you and the staff and also council for being proactive and thinking ahead in the future. And I know this will benefit the city very well with all the stuff that's going on. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Madam Secretary, thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one speaker, Donna Sy. She gone? Oh.
She right there.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. I've been concerned about this SIPSA issue from the get-go. The citizens in Craddock Civic League wanted to keep the contract with Wheelabrator. All right? So let me see. They're planning to build a transfer station in Portsmouth. Well, already what we have in Portsmouth on Victory Boulevard is a transfer station that our city trucks take to this transfer station, and it transfers over to Wheelabrator, and they take care of it. Chesapeake is really forward-thinking, and they want to get this repower built in Chesapeake so that they want Portsmouth to have a transfer station that won't use the Victory Boulevard transfer station and not use the Wheelabrator anymore. So they're going to think about paying, don't hold me to the numbers because they can change, $5 million for the transfer station here in Portsmouth. Now, in the paper the other day, SIPSA told the commercial truck drivers, I reckon you call them, don't worry, they're going to try to figure out how to solve their problems. Repower wants to sell some bonds. I don't know how many bonds, but they want to sell bonds. And all I see with this taken away from Portsmouth, the Wheelabrator contract is the amount of money that's going to be spent in building a new transfer station. Now we got to make this CA 16-01 to make new laws so that they can, the city has control. So that's all I have to say is, you know, I'm really concerned about the mix-up that this situation has caused the citizens of Portsmouth. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Commissioner Youngblood.
Ms. Sy, if you would come back out to the podium, I'd appreciate it. Well, I'm perplexed here.
You're the one
The-
that talked to me, don't talk to you. So now you want to talk to me?
It seems odd to me that well, I guess it doesn't really matter. Thank you, Ms. Sy. Your comments are always appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item CA-16-01. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, any discussion, any questions on this item?
G.
Chairs in need of a motion. Commissioner G.
I move for acceptance of CA 16-01.
Chair received the motion. Chairs in need of a second. Commissioner Thomas.
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved, 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. In reference to our meeting calendar for the year 2016/2017, due to a conflict with the City's Council organizational meeting on January 3rd, 2017, I would need a motion to adjust the meeting date for the Planning Commission from January 3rd, 2017 to January 17th, 2017. Chairs in need of a motion.
And July, I believe.
We don't need to go there.
The July is automatic.
July automatic. So chairs in need of a motion. Commissioner Youngblood.
I make a motion, we adjust the meeting schedule for January per
3rd, 2017.
Yes,
To January 17th.
to January 17, 2017.
Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood. Chair received the motion. Chairs in need of a second. Commissioner G.
Second.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to make the adjustment on our January the 3rd to January the 17th calendar for our Planning Commission meeting. You will be voting electronically. This item is approved, 7-0.
Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Commissioners, do you have any further business?
No further business.
No further business? Mr. Baldwin, is there any further business, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, we are very hopeful that before perhaps the end of the day, certainly by the end of the week, our consultant contract for the comprehensive plan will be signed. So we expect that project to be starting almost immediately, and we'll have further discussion with the Planning Commission at your September meeting.
Yes, sir.
For the details of that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Any other business? Hearing there's none, this meeting is now adjourned.